on Friday. So 2 days from today, we're having a 3-hour EdCamp. And here's our little story. So it all started with 1 hour on October 7th, 2013. So my principal right here, Terry Sterling, she comes up to me and she says, would you like to lead a 1-hour PD on Twitter to the whole staff? And I was happy because she was working with Twitter, but then I'm like, man, there's teachers that's one size fits all. Okay, they sent it back to me, and it looked like this. And these are some of the answers that I got. Evernote, apps, arts in the classroom, just random things. So I went through and kind of looked at the top needs. And then I had to decide the number of sessions and the length of the sessions. So was I going to do a 1-hour EdCamp, like 1 hour, one session with like choices, or was I going to do 2 30-minute sessions? And then I also had to think about the number of people. I only had about 37 teachers-ish. Okay, so you have to think about the number of people and the number of sessions. So here's what I went with. So we had 37 people. I went with 2 sessions of 30 minutes each and 4 choices each. So if you have about 40 people, that's about 10 people a session if it's equal. All right, and let me see something here. Okay, so when I populated this too, I did not do a full EdCamp model. What I did is I went to teacher. Would you lead one? That was Jason Haniger. I said, would you please lead this? And he goes, okay. He didn't want to. He goes, do I have to have all the stuff ready? I'm like, no, just conversation, whatever you got. So he said, okay. But I think if I would have done the first one where they signed up, I don't know if I would have gotten them all filled in. Because teachers, they're not used to it. But now the teachers are. Learner, and it's about talking. You don't have to sign up, you go wherever you want. And they're just looking at me like, okay. So then they went, and the cool thing is, I just went over this. The cool thing is, once you get to step 4, it just goes. Like, there's nothing you have to do. It just happens. Like, people they go talk, and teachers want to learn. They're learners. Okay, and you might have a few that aren't, but you're going to have more than that with traditional PD. Step 5, send out a survey. How did it go? What do you want? On our first survey back, all sorts of good things. I mean, it was overwhelming positive feedback. Okay. One thing they said is we want longer sessions, give us more time to fill out the board so we can think about it more. But everybody, you should have heard that people stayed late in the session. They stayed late. Does that ever happen? Oh. Okay, so these were some of the comments. Yeah. Gave me time to talk to my colleagues. Notice the word talk. They kept focusing on the word talk. I got to talk to people, like about things that I want to talk about. Okay, so then this is killer. So we had no more EdCamp PD and the whole rest of that year. That was last year. In May, the principal says to all the teachers in the grade level meeting, she goes, what kind of PD do you want for next year? And I was stoked that she asked that. I was like, that's awesome. And every days, and then in October we had one, and we're having one this Friday, and the teachers love it. That's what we've got so far. So what we've gone to now is we use Google Docs. Okay, so we still do kind of a modified version. I'm going to show you what it looks like. But what happens now is the principal, like in work week, she emailed the teachers and she said, what are you interested in? What do you want to learn? And then are you willing to lead something? So if you said you're willing to lead, you said you were, she would email back and go, would you lead this session? And then she would populate the Google Doc, and I'll show you what that looks like. That's all you need to see. All right, so here it is. So here's the 8 to 8:50 tab. Here's the 9 to 9:50 tab, and the 10 to 10:50 tab. All right, and you can see the choices we've got across here, and I think we had 6 choices. 6 choices, and we have about 70 or 80 staff, so that puts about 12 or so at each station. So these are all based on what teachers want to learn, and it's teachers that volunteered to lead now. They volunteered without, we don't have to pull legs. And then they have a sign up, but you can still leave. Like, you can still vote with your feet. So it's pretty cool. 2 days before the EdCamp, like today, we'll get an email that gives all the choices, and you just sign up. You can go wherever you want. You can still change, and the teachers like it because they have a chance to think about it before they go a little bit. That's the feedback we get. But it's super easy, and I've got the doc for you, and you just fill it out. Teachers sign up. It's crazy how easy it is to do. Right, so that's a picture of it. Right, administrative response. They love it. The feeling in the hall, the tone in the hall is just so relaxed and laid back, and they don't have to do anything. The administrators don't have to come up with spaghetti towers for us to make, and that kind of. We don't have to do that. And they walk around, they're just like, wow. I mean, you should see them. They're just like, great. They pop into sessions, and all the teachers are happy and talking, and you get to talk to PE teachers about. I mean, it's just awesome. And they're like, wow, I can go do what I want. Everybody's happy. What? This is some feedback. Being able to sit, chat, and work with our colleagues. I mean, does it get any more simple? Most conversations were about what we are using in the classroom, what works, what doesn't work. I learned many new things that I can't wait to use in my class. Now, do you hear that after traditional PD? It was great to choose which sessions we attended. Much like students, we thrive on choice. I love that it was not just sit and get like most PD. I liked being involved. I liked the fact that I did not feel pressure or stress. Everyone was willing to share ideas in a relaxed atmosphere. The first EdCamp, one of the feedbacks was I didn't leave angry. I mean, who's ever felt demeaned almost in PD? I do. I'm sitting there going, why am I doing this? How is this helping? I'm not learning. I'm not connecting. I'm not growing, dreaming. So, and like I said, it's easy. It's free. It's beautiful. It was amazing to see that educators that have been in the profession for decades stepping up to share their expertise with our community. This is absolutely the way it should be, learning from one another because we are a team and everyone achieves more as a whole. Okay, so Voxer. I use this a lot. Raise your hand if you've ever used Voxer.
Very satisfied and want to do more of it. So it's been great. Appreciate all your help with it, and thanks.
And that's what I hear from everybody. From everybody that I've talked to that's done an EdCamp, it's just not difficult. The teachers love it, and I just still can't get over that. My staff did an EdCamp 1 hour in October, and in May it was still. Jimmy is coming up here in about 6 minutes, but let's talk right here beyond EdCamps in schools. Right. In my school, the one thing we have, it's so good that we've got it going. We're on the 4th 3-hour day of ed. You could do project-based PD. You could have a Google Doc for everybody. Okay, what are you working on? You know, this is what on these days. Genius Hour, project-based PD for teachers. Like I said, it's adaptable. Multiple schools. Same district, different districts. Michelle, what did you do with? Did you have an EdCamp? Yeah, she's in Excelsior, so they had some people from Kansas City come in and help with the EdCamp, and that's a great way. That's awesome. You could do guest facilitators, content focused. If you have a small school, bring other schools in, and then expectation of administrators, schools, districts to provide personalized PD choices for teachers. I think that's something that we need to push. It's something we deserve. I mean, it's really not okay that we don't get to be learners and we don't get to bring our best to schools and we have to work in isolation. So if administrators had that expectation that they had to have provide the spark. I'm going to add some names here, school EdCamp PD leaders. And now let's talk for a couple minutes. Do you guys have any questions? Do you guys have any questions about EdCamp PD in your school? We come in and usually you can arrange the room any way you want, but you sit together. Like you don't, typically in an EdCamp, you don't stand up here. Okay, you kind of sit down together. You might sit by your computer if you're leading something up here, but it's just a conversation. And you might talk for the first 10 minutes, you know, here's what I do. Let me show you. It's just, people just start talking, one thing leads to another, and it's going to work, I promise, it's going to work. Any other questions? Yes. We haven't done a theme. We haven't. We're just going on what they want to learn about. So if somebody wants to learn Evernote and lead a session, it's there, but they don't have to go to it. So they can pick the ones they want to go to. So if you work with what the teachers want, no, in general. Now you could do a focused one, especially if you were rolling something out. You could do that, but if you're asking the teachers what they want and you're putting their choices on the board and they can go to their choices, you should be fine. Yes. Yeah. you have a school that's too small and you have that culture, you probably want to pull in other people, honestly, because that could be toxic. My school's big enough, and we've got a good balance, so it's not an issue. But I think you would have to think about that. Now, when you go to a real ed camp, everybody's invested there. The people are like raring to go, so it's different. But a school ed camp, that's definitely something to think about. And you'll start growing leaders, and these teachers are natural leaders, but it gets lost, and so then you'll have these people come up, and the culture will shift. It shifts to a more positive thing, but that's definitely something to think about. All right, Jimmy Casas, raise your hand if you know Jimmy. If you know of him. He's on Twitter. He is a principal in Iowa. He's very connected. He makes good things happen, and he's done ed camps at his school. He runs EdCamp Iowa, and he's on Voxer, and he agreed to answer a few questions and just talk to you guys about what he does so you can hear another perspective. So I'm going to Vox to Jimmy right now. Hey, Jimmy, are you there? It's been delivered to Jimmy. It's funny, I was Voxing him about it. He goes, well, can you give me a window of time, like 10 minutes? And I'm like, 11:20 to 11:30 or 11:30 to 40. And he said 30 to 40. So he's doing like observations and walkthroughs. So, yeah. Yeah. Right. So I say, go. It's really hard to do an EdCamp discussion when you can't sit together and talk about it. But go back to your school and don't be afraid. It's so easy. Like it's easy. It's free. I mean, you have some really good selling points with administrators. Um, those of you that have done an EdCamp in your school, anybody have a negative experience with it? She's that person. So every single person I've ever heard do an EdCamp, it's gone. Like they say what Tim Vesco said. It was beautiful. The teachers loved it. They want more. My teachers 1 hour, and like, right. have a question. Anybody that did that's done EdCamp PD in their school, did anybody do the board where you just leave it up for teachers to sign up on? Okay, how'd that go? Oh yeah. Yeah, mine did that too. They're like, you have to sign up, and they didn't really understand the law of 2 feet, the voting with your feet, and I kind of bumped that in there, and they know now. So, but it kind of helps them get started. But they're not comfortable. They feel like they're hurting somebody's feelings if they leave. So I try to focus that at the beginning. It's not about the presenters. It's about you as a learner, and that is what.
I'm now available for you. So we went to the EdCamp in Chicago that fall, and with that group of 15, they were so excited that their thought was, we'd love to run an EdCamp in our school. So that spring, I believe it was April, we went ahead and ran our own EdCamp here with our staff. And the way we organized it, we actually utilized those 15 people. But believe it or not, we also had other people because they had shared their story, or we just had other teachers that felt very strong and very confident in their pedagogy or their instructional practices, or the use of technology or integration of technology, whatever. But they felt very confident with themselves. So the first time I did it, I will admit that in order to make sure that it was successful, I did go to people and say, hey, when we do this, is this something that you'd be willing to facilitate a session on? And if you'd like to do that when that time comes, would you mind making sure you go up and volunteer and sign up for a session on those types of things? I also worked with my team leaders, so they of course knew what it was. We had talked about it. I encouraged them to encourage their colleagues. And the first time we ran it, honestly, we had no issues. I think we ran, I want to say 24 sessions, that first EdCamp that we had. And so the way we set that up is we actually did a mini EdCamp. We didn't do the full thing because we didn't use a full day PD. So what we did is we ran 3 sessions, a 3-session EdCamp version. But again, we just, like EdCamps do, we showed up, we had a breakfast, we talked about it, we set an agenda together, a schedule together in 30 minutes, and then we went to different breakout rooms. And then when we're done, of course, we got the feedback from them. We had